Good morning everyone. Basahin tayo ng ating libro guys, History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Kapwa ko Pilipino, magbasa na tayo ng ating history para may alam tayo sa ating bansa. Today is 31 January 2023. Yung note ko dyan, back to original reading 5th edition. Kasi nagsingit tayo ng ng 8th edition doon sa topic 15. Kaya mayroong note na tuloy ako dyan. So, balik tayo sa original reading nakalagay. Back to original reading, 5th edition, History of the Filipino People, Part 4, the American Period. Topic 17, the Harrison Administration. Dito tayo sa paragraph, the Rift over Leadership. Ang bilis ng buwan guys, no? Bukas February na. The Rift over Leadership. Thus, with the encouragement of President Wilson and the cooperation of Harrison, the Filipinos secured practically complete autonomy under a system of government not contemplated or authorized by the Jones Law. Harrison's surrender of his prerogatives placed the executive and legislative powers of the government in the hands of two men, Osmeña and Quezon, and consequently in the hands of the Nacionalista Party, which had dominated the Philippine legislature since its overwhelming victory in the elections of 1907. Osmeña, ever since Governor Taft designated him as the second man in the Philippine government, was recognized as the undisputed leader and spokesman of the Filipinos. Quezon, who was elected President of the Senate in 1916, shared control of the government but played second fiddle to the latter. Osmeña's leadership remained peacefully unchallenged until 1916, but with the creation of the Senate by the Jones Law, there was some doubt as to who should be the leader. A temporary solution was found in the form of the Council of State, of which both men were members. Osmeña, upon the motion of Quezon, was elected vice chairman of the council. Quezon, however, said later that such an arrangement was unsatisfactory, it being a mere executive creation, and that the President of the Senate should officially outrank the Speaker. It was inevitable, therefore, that sooner or later a rift over leadership would take place. The bitter struggle for supremacy that followed profoundly affected the development of party government and political parties in the Philippines. The rift arose from the absence of a well-defined position for the recognized leader of the people in the Organic Act. Part of it too resulted from the utter lack of an effective opposition body to the already entrenched Nacionalista Party. The Nacionalista Party, grown so big and unchallenged in power and influence. May Nacionalista Party pa ba this time? Parang wala na, no? Marami na tayong political party this time. Ang nanalo sa atin this time is Unit Team. Si Inday Sara at si BBM. So ito guys, nakalagay ito, already entrenched Nacionalista Party. Nacionalista Party, grown so big and unchallenged in power and influence, had become unwieldy and tended to split into several factions under different leaders. Much of the rift, however, may be ascribed to restlessness of those in a subordinate position that was inherent in the characters of both the Senate and its President Quezon. When he was elected Senate President, revolt against the leadership of the Speaker of the House became merely a matter of time. Meanwhile, a small group of nationalists led by Teodoro Santico seceded from the Nationalist Party in 1914 in protest against the very personal and autocratic government under the Nacionalistas and founded the Partido Democrata Nacional. Its founding heartened the progresistas, remnants of the Federal Party, now reduced to an inert opposition party, for a third party could help break the domination of the government by the Nacionalistas. The combined strength of the two minority parties, however, was hardly a threat to the majority party. In the special elections of 1916, 21 Nacionalistas were elected, while one of the two appointed senators was an independent. The minority parties decided to merge, resulting in the Partido Democrata, which became the opposition party until 1931. In the general elections of 1919, the Democratas, counting as members such prominent men as Juan Samolong, Claro M. Recto, Gregorio Perfecto, Roberto Montenola, Pio Valenzuela, and Jose Alejandrino suffered still another defeat. Real opposition originated from within the Nacionalista Party. In December 1921, Quezon, who had been biding his time publicly, launched In December 1921, Quezon had been biding his time publicly, launched his revolt against Osmeña's leadership. Two issues were involved in the break between the two leaders: how Filipino leadership in the government should be exercised, and who should be the leader. All measures which received Osmeña approval were enacted into law, and no legislation could sorry guys, warp na kasi hindi na siya makita. Ulit. All measures which received Osmeña approval were enacted into law, and no legislation could be approved without his consent. The department secretaries followed his advice and did nothing against his opinion. The Governor-General constantly sought his counsel. In other words, Osmeña had almost become a Kaiser in the government. Quezon averred that party control of the government was unwise and improper because it violated the provision of the Jones Law regarding distribution of powers and placed in the hands of a non-official person authority which legally belonged to specific individuals and agencies of the government. This, he pointed out, resulted in an autocratic rather than a democratic political system. The Speaker, as party president, could even encroach on the power of the Senate to confirm appointments made by the Governor-General. Quezon therefore advocated collective leadership, or the distribution of authority and responsibilities among the various agencies and leaders in government. Osmeña, however, categorically denied Quezon's accusation that he been dictatorial or that a one-man rule had been established in the Philippines. Osmeña believed that party or unipersonal leadership was necessary in order to provide united and responsible direction for Filipino participation in the government. It should be sustained to ensure the retention of the autonomy secured by the Filipinos under the Jones Law, and was necessary in order to achieve national independence. Party leadership was hardly dictatorial, for it was in consonance with representative government. For the majority party represented public opinion and preferences. Osmeña offered to reorganize the House of Representatives and transfer his powers to a committee with him as a mere presiding officer. Tapos na yung hater ko. Paganyan ko na. Kahapon, tugo ilong ko sa sobrang lamig pagising ko. Ganyan talaga guys. Sobrang pag malamig, hindi kaya ng katawan mo. So, gamit ka heater. Ulit tayo. Osmeña believed that party or unipersonal leadership was necessary in order to provide united and responsible direction for Filipino participation in government. Ang haba naman ito. Ulit ako dito. Osmeña, however, categorically denied Quezon's accusation that he been dictatorial or that a one-man rule had been established in the Philippines. Osmeña believed that party or unipersonal leadership was necessary in order to provide united and responsible direction for Filipino participation in the government. It should be sustained to ensure the retention of the autonomy retention of the autonomy secured by the Filipinos under the Jones Law and was necessary in order to achieve national independence. Party leadership was hardly dictatorial, for it was in consonance with representative government, for the majority party represented public opinion and preferences. Osmeña offered to reorganize the House of Representatives and transfer his powers to a committee with him as a mere presiding officer. Quezon likewise made an offer along similar lines. Both were rejected by their respective chambers. Osmeña and his followers were called unipersonalistas. Quezon and his followers, objecting to the parliamentary form of government engendered by Osmeña leadership, were called colectivistas. Quezon, who envisioned a presidential form of government, advocated collective leadership in which responsibility would be placed in each branch of the government. The collectivistas suggested that leadership be vested in a committee composed of 4 members of the Senate and 4 members of the House of Representatives, chosen by the majority in each chamber, as well as by the nationalista members of the cabinet. The chairman of this body, they further suggested, would be chosen at the start of every meeting of the committee. The House, however, refused to consider the suggestion on ayun naman tapusin ko lang ito, tapos bukas isa naman. Uh, 324. The collectivistas or the senators proceeded to destroy the Osmeña system by refusing to follow his leadership in appointments and legislation. By late October 1921, the Senate, without consulting the Speaker, established a committee that conferred directly with the Governor-General on problems of appointments. 2 months later, the Senate ceased to observe the traditional practice of acting on the House Appropriations Bill before the Christmas vacation. Osmeña, realizing that the only kind of leadership he wanted to preserve was already destroyed, offered to resign both as President of the Nacionalista Party and as Vice President of the Council of State. The lower house did not accept his resignation. Instead, ranking members of Nacionalista Party attempted to bring about a compromise that would avert an open break between the two leaders and thus preserve the unity of the party. They proposed the creation of a council of 10 to be composed of party members from both chambers. The Nacionalista caucus called for the purpose was a victory for Osmeña, for the council was dominated by unipersonalistas. Quezon in turn tendered his resignation, which was not accepted as President of the Senate. Uncompromising in his position, he declared, "I will always stand by my theory of collective leadership, even if I have to leave the Nacionalista Party. The time has come for the establishment in the islands of political parties which should fight for principles, not necessarily for the control of the government. My loyalty to my party ends where my loyalty to my country begins. First of all, that a split in the Nacionalista Party would prove inimical to the Filipino cause. Osmeña offered the leadership of the party to Quezon. The latter, determined to break away from Osmeña, proceeded to establish another party. In any case, the break between the two leaders finally became complete in February 1922 when the Partido Nacionalista Colectivista was organized with Quezon as its president. This faction came to be considered as another opposition party even as the Democratas continued to attack it, and the Partido Nacionalista Unipersonalistas, the regular wing under Osmeña, for having conducted an inefficient, corrupt, autocratic administration indifferent to the welfare of the people. In the elections of 1922, Quezon campaigned on the issue of collective leadership and won. The division in the Nacionalista Party, however, permitted the Democratas to make substantial gains, as a result of which no party had a clear-cut majority in either house of the legislature. In the Senate, the collectivistas won 3 seats and the Democratas 5. Most of the older Nacionalista. Ulitin ko ulit guys ha. In the Senate, the collectivistas won 3 seats and the Democratas 5. Most of the older Nacionalista senators joined the collectivistas, giving Quezon a slim majority. In the lower house, the collectivistas won 32 seats, Democratas 26, and the Unipersonalistas 21. Quezon's majority in the House, however, was not sufficient to assure him complete control over the lower chamber. It seemed that Quezon's victory in the election would end the 15-year monopoly of power by the Nacionalistas and offer a chance for the creation of a real two-party system in the Philippines. The opportunity was lost on account of the political situation in 1922. Failing to obtain a majority in the House, Quezon was unable to reorganize the legislature without the support of either the Unipersonalistas or the Democratas. Osmeña, who also won a seat in the Senate, was offered by the Democratas their senators vote to help him win the Senate presidency on condition that the Unipersonalistas in the lower house elect Claro M. Recto, the Democrata candidate, as Speaker. Osmeña, who had little sympathy for the Democratas, turned down this proposal and instead supported Quezon's candidate Manuel Rojas. Osmeña thought that the Unipersonalistas had more things in common with the collectivistas than with the Democratas. As a result, Quezon was re-elected Senate President and Osmeña was elected Senate President pro tempore. Quezon was now the top Filipino leader, with Osmeña playing the second fiddle. Bukas na to. Yung Democrata Party, and then the next naman, tapusin ko na lang kaya to. Para bukas, umpisa tayo sa 18. The Democrata Party. After 1922, the Democratas expressed keen dissatisfaction, sa sobrang kaluman din na mabas. Democratas expressed keen dissatisfaction. Ano ba yan? Ulit ako ha. The Democrata Party after 1922. The Democratas expressed keen dissatisfaction over the ease with which Quezon reversed his political platform. No sooner had he gained control of the legislature than he turned his back on collective leadership and adopted Osmeña's theory of unipersonal leadership. Aided by similarly dissatisfied collectivistas, they sharply criticized that the hasty to unofficial coalition between Osmeña and Quezon ended. Quezon had won in the bitter struggle for political supremacy, but in the face of the growing strength of the Democratas, his was a none to secure leadership. Quezon found it politically expedient to bring about a reconciliation with the Unipersonalistas. The equal stature of the Democratas with the two wings of the Nacionalista Party had prompted Governor Leonard Wood to consider giving them its cabinet portfolio. Moreover, the Democratas had become a powerful and effective opposition in the special elections of 1923 to fill up a vacancy in the 4th senatorial district. The Democratas put up a fight that threatened Quezon very leadership. Wood's vigorous attempts to regain the Governor-General's executive prerogatives abdicated. Guys, basahin nyo rin yung history nyo. Kapag Filipino, nagbasa tayo. Luma na kasi ito kaya hirap ako magbasa. Wood's vigorous attempts to regain the Governor-General's executive prerogatives abdicated by Harrison had made reconciliation doubly necessary. In April 1924, the Quezon and Osmeña wings of the Nacionalista Party merged into a new party called Partido Nacionalista Consolidado. It was a virtual return to the old political setup with Quezon as president and Osmeña as vice president. Despite the fusion of the two wings of the Nacionalista Party, the Democrats made a good showing in the election of 1925. Though their financial resources were limited and the election machinery was completely controlled by Consolidados, the Democrats retained 22 of their seats in the House and increased their representation in the Senate from 5 to 8. In 1926, however, the Directorate of the Democrata Party agreed to join the Nacionalista leaders in the creation of the Supreme National Council, Consejo Supremo Nacional, under the presidency of Quezon. In so doing, the Democratas lost forever their opportunity to remain a powerful opposition with some hope of eventually turning out as the party in power. The Council of 1926-1927 to 1927 was established by Quezon partly because of the desire to weaken, if not destroy, the Democrata Party. By joining forces with the Nacionalistas, they abdicated their position of independence and abandoned their functions as the opposition party in the Philippines. Between 1926 and 1932, the Democratas weakened considerably. In the elections of 1928, they lost control over Manila. A Democrata Belwick for 6 years reduced their representation in the lower house from 12 to 16 and failed to elect even one senator. Moreover, the holdover Democrata senators as well as most independent members of the lower house joined the Nacionalista Party. The remaining Democratas were further discouraged by the resignation of Senator Juan Sumolong as party president and his subsequent retirement from politics. In a convention held in February 1932, after attempts at reorganizing and reinvigorating itself failed miserably, the Democratas approved a resolution dissolving the party. Bukas na yung topic number 18, guys, the Wood administration. Bye everyone. God bless.